Hello, listeners. We are back with another episode of StarrCast podcast. They just keep coming. So today's conversation sits right at the intersection of something we talk about all the time in this industry, which is experience, and something we don't always define that clearly, which is well-being. So I want to start with a somewhat uncomfortable question, possibly. What if most of what we call wellness experiences aren't actually improving anyone's well-being? They're very beautiful, they're relaxing, we do them very well, but are they really changing anything meaningful for the guest once they walk out the door?
Mhm.
Because our industry is built around the promise of feeling better, functioning better, living better, but we don't always stop to ask, are we delivering on that promise? Or are we just creating really nice moments? And there's nothing wrong with that either. Well, today we're going to challenge that idea head on and explore the concept of well-being experience design, or WX, an approach that shifts the goal from satisfaction to actual impact. And if that sounds like a higher bar, it is. But we're going to dig into what that really means and how this could change the way we approach spa and wellness experiences. And of course, there's no one better than to guide us through that conversation than someone that loves to poke the bear, Laszlo Puczko. Laszlo is an Inspiraptor, health and well-being, hospitality, leisure, and travel strategist and academic. And he is joined by his partner, Melanie Smith, academic researcher, and they are both co-founders of HTWW Life, which is Health Tourism Worldwide Life. They have been researching these health and tourism issues for several decades, so they are well equipped
Sound good?
to talk about this. So thank you both for joining us today.
Thank you so much, Lisa.
Thank you.
It's great to have you here. So this this episode was prompted by the release just a week or two ago from Melanie and Laszlo of a new white paper on the Wellbeing Experience. Although those of you who frequent the talk show conference circuit have heard Laszlo speak on this topic before on WX, but it is really well laid out in this new paper. And I thought, it's time we really address this issue. As I said in the open, are we really making people better, or is it just lip service? So
Mhm.
we're going to begin the conversation with talking about the transition from CX, customer experience, to WX, the wellness experience, and how that evolves. Because clients today are very knowledgeable, right? They come in, they've got their device, they've looked everything up, they know more than we do sometimes about what's out there in the market. So we really have to up our game. And how are we doing that, and how will we? What does that evolution look like? So I'll throw it over to you, Laszlo.
Thank you so much. You have been complimentary as always. It's really appreciated. So we have been doing a couple of double acts in the last how many years? 15 years, may I add, or something like that. Not revealing too much personal detail over here. The whole idea was coming from the a shift in thinking and also in delivery. Since most, as your preamble, you already hinted, service providers, spas, wellness centers, wellness clubs, hospitality providers, even the longevity providers, doesn't matter which subsegment we're talking about, they've extremely focused on the delivery, on the technical delivery of a certain treatment, intervention, therapy. The SOPs would define in tiny details of how many seconds you would need to do whatever you need to do. But it's all coming from the delivery perspective of how to optimize movements, how to optimize material use and potions and lotions and temperature of oils and all of that. But don't necessarily look at how it is perceived from the user's end, and also how it had been expected from the user, pre-arrival, what they would expect from that program, journey, treatment, whatever category you want to talk about. So it's very much on the delivery side, the technical aspects of it, not on the benefits and not on the results. Obviously, the technicalities are essential because they need to provide, you need to ensure quality, and also need to train staff to provide reliable service. But those who pay for it, they would expect some return, some outcome.
Mhm.
And the WX is looking at from that outcomes perspective of, should I expect to have this and this outcome, how that can be and should be orchestrated, delivered, and obviously in the very first place designed, not just looking at it that how many minutes it lasts, but the let's say the mental state of the guest or even patient, if you will, that's completely different pre-arrival, during, and post. So it's not just optimizing a service delivery as it is, but looking at it at what it wants to achieve.
I think it's interesting what you said because we who are designing the experiences in the spa are experts, right? This is our field. And we have that curse of knowledge, right? That we know things and we know words and we know phrases and we know how it should be. And so we design it with that in mind. But I think many times when I'm at a spa, like as a secret shopper, I think no one that works there has had this treatment, like because we design it, but we don't see what it feels like from the customer side.
Mm,
And then we don't think about the lasting impact either. So we have to find a way to bridge that gap.
mm. And to think holistically about the experience, this is why we moved into the idea of going beyond the service scope to the experience scope and the whole customer journey from the moment you start to search for your experience, and then even the feedback that you might get after you've sort of posted your review of your experience. And
Mhm.
what you said at the beginning, I think, was really important about whether or not we're really changing people's lives and giving them optimum wellness. And if we do manage to do that one time, hopefully we create a loyalty where people would want to come back and have the same experience again and then recommend facilities. So I think if we get all of the elements of the experience right, that would work. But it's not enough to deliver a fantastic massage. It has to be more than that. And all the elements have to be connected, I think.
Certainly so. And also important to recognize that experience is not a novelty. It's not like
Mm.
we discovered something, yesterday, 4 o'clock in the morning. It has been around forever. The question is how aware we have been to define, orchestrate, and deliver that experience. Everything is experience, or discussion. This discussion is an experience. This podcast is an experience, or the listeners will have an experience when they listen to it. They may be moved, they may ponder, they may respond and comment. That's all experience. The question is, and that when you had created this whole series, you had a intention and a vision of why to do so,
Mhm.
and what experience your listeners would need to get. So it's not anything new. At the same time, it's still new, since we often believe that this just happens and we cannot control it or cannot even define it. Uh, it's easier if you didn't. But obviously, the success stories tell us that if you did it well, then the delivery also will result in the outcomes that anybody wanted.
Right. So we have to shift our thinking from that experience of, okay, we think we're creating it for them until we really are, and we're testing the outcome. And
Mm.
I don't know where it falls down, but maybe it's because when they walk out the door, we don't know what happens, right? We can orchestrate what happens within our space, but we don't know what happens once they've gone. And how are we going to shift our thinking as managers and owners of these facilities to addressing that?
Let me give you a little example, and also to the dear listeners, how it should be done. We have been talking with colleagues about the odor neutralizing solution. Should you go to a hot spring which is full of sulfates, it has a residual smell, and is not something that you would like to take to dinner. especially, on your skin or even on your hair. That's not something that you want. But the service delivery doesn't think about the post visit effects or residuals of
Mm,
that visit. They said, yes, that's part of the approach, and then you should benefit from this lovely sulfurous scent, which you may or may not like, but definitely wouldn't like to have your lovely dress going down to dinner and stinking of sulfurous odors. But the facilities wouldn't
mm,
think of having neutralizing shampoos and conditioners and shower gels to just neutralize, not to give something else, just to think that, yes, you're coming to this place, you will have a residual smell. You may not actually want to have it. So I think of post-stay circumstances and post-stay impacts. And this is just a silly little example of how you need to go beyond the time when your guest leaves the door and changed and paid the bill.
mm. True,
Mm.
very true. So how do we? I mean, we've got to understand that it's not just about satisfaction in the moment, it's about the long-term transformation, that word that people are looking for. Why is that? Why has the consumer mindset shifted into this long-term view? What are your thoughts on that?
I mean, I think, we talked about the experience economy of Pine and Gilmore, and we refer to that model
Mhm,
quite a lot, I think, in research. And then Joseph Pine starts now to talk about the transformation economy and how we're
mhm,
very interested in changing and improving ourselves in the long term. And I think the fitness industry, the beauty industry, the spa industry, a lot of this is about changing ourselves for the better, whether it's our skincare, whether it's our keeping our bodies fit and healthy, for example, or whether it's preventative health. So using, for example, massage as a form of back care as well as just for relaxation. So I think people have moved more to the right mindset that this might become a little bit more part of their everyday lives. And they may use it on a more regular basis to try to either use it for improvement of themselves or maintenance of a certain condition as well. So I think it's gone beyond a one-off experience to something that might become more part of lifestyle and part of our future as well, especially in terms of longevity and staying healthy into older age.
I don't think there's anything wrong with having a lovely, relaxing experience which lasts for half an hour. There's
No.
absolutely nothing wrong about it.
Mm.
Maybe you should have it even today, to
Well,
be
we need
honest.
that too.
But but it's nothing wrong. The question is this really what the customer had in mind when they decided to come, book, pay? Because if that was it, it was the expectation, and we delivered it, then it's fabulous. Then we do have, customer experience, and we did it well. The question is that really enough? We have people now, and it seems that more and more people who would like to have the results. They would like to
Mhm.
see what the outcome is. It's not just some
Mhm.
plush pillows and cushions and beautiful, interior design. But if you will, you can call it a result economy. That I invest time, intention, money to an activity, which is you know predominantly nice. I don't know about IV drips, how nice those are, but that's a different story. That's nothing nice about that. But you want to have an outcome. You want to have a clear path that I'm doing this, I'm investing into this, then I'm going to have this and this outcome. I will look 5 years younger. I will be energized. I am on the way to recovery. I am enlightened because I did a holistic programming. So give me an outcome I can relate to, and I can say that yes, I am happy to work towards that. Then that's a different approach from just buying a half an hour something, which is lovely, but I don't
Mm.
necessarily look beyond that. But at the same time, we shouldn't assume that not everybody is going to be interested in transformation and full transformation
mm,
and super healthy, holistic lifestyle. Absolutely won't. But the really increase in the service provision in the brands and the longevity centers, the wellness clubs, and all of that show that both at the delivery side as well as the demand side, there is more to it than just creating that 30-minute, 45-minute, 50-minute uh, uh, time slotted activity.
Mm. And you have to know your customers in that case, which that takes research, of course, and segmentation. And I think you might find women are looking for something different than men, or you might be at a different stage of your life, for example. Or there are certain processes, I think, that regarding fitness or beauty that you might be doing on an ongoing basis. Others that are seen as a special luxury or treat, for example. And I think sometimes you need relaxation, and sometimes you need beautification, and sometimes you need pain management. So it really depends, I think, what you're looking for. And that can be different at different times of the year or different times of your life. So this is why I think this research on customer motivation and profiles is really important, even personas, because then we understand a bit more people's lifestyles and their demographics as well. And this can also help, I think, in understanding the customers.
And also cultural traits,
Yeah.
how we set up culturally, because, they have these three pillars that define cultural approaches and behaviors, even unintentionally, subconsciously. We react and behave and respond and take part in a certain way, depending on how we grew up, what the community around us are proving, and who the peer groups are. And then, when someone designs individual treatment cubicles to communities or even people with cultural backgrounds that require social activities, it's completely wrong. You wouldn't provide treatment spaces where you can do 4 or 5 people at the very same time, because they want to chat, they want to enjoy themselves, they want to be together. So it's all very nice that you give it to interior designers or the architects, but that the brief is missing. The cultural, the well-being brief, the well-being experience, a journey brief is completely missing. It's not just, oh, I would like to have 15 treatment rooms, but nobody is buying treatment rooms. When I'm paying in the end, I'm not paying for a treatment room. I'm paying for that 1 hour, 3 hour, whatever journey, program, activity that had been designed with this well-being mindset available.
Hopefully results in some transformative feeling in you. I
Yeah.
mean, there has been a huge shift in my perspective in how consumers look at this. I mean, the decades ago when I started in this field, they did just want that hour getaway and they were happy with that. And now it's not enough. And I think often about, well, how did that happen? Was it the internet? Was it the sharing of info? Was it the pictures of spas on Instagram that you see? I think that contributed to it, and certainly the COVID experience seems to have accelerated it in a good way. This is a good problem for us, right? That guests think, "Oh, I should go to the spa and I'll feel better and I'll be more healthy, and so I should go more often." Of course, we want that, and yet somehow the experience design has not kept up.
I
So
think, yeah.
go ahead, Mel.
Yes, I was just thinking also, if you talk to Generation Z, they form the majority of my students. They tell me that it's social media, and especially Instagram, is creating certain lifestyle expectations or certain lifestyles that people are aspiring to. And a lot of it is to do with influencers, celebrities, going to spas, having beauty treatments, looking a certain way. So although it might seem quite a superficial issue, actually this is quite important for them to aspire to certain lifestyles. So I think it's definitely fueled by social media, and especially Instagram at the moment for younger generations.
And also innovation. People, let's say, I can say that many people don't really know what would make them feel better, because they never tried it, never heard about it. Therefore, there is not on the agenda. So innovators, creativity and innovation, coming up with new solutions, programming, treatment, digital or not, analog or not, depending, it creates a plethora of options. And of course, social media would tell the others that those things exist, but it's all coming from innovation and also from creativity, that people put together things that never been put together before, bring technology in, or maybe expel technology altogether, and so on. So that's really fueling the development of the business, that innovative minds coming up. And then, like in any other industry or any other business, innovators start and the others catch up.
Right. I
Now
see
we are
what you
catching up,
said.
to be honest. Now we are
I'm
catching up.
I just wrote my newsletter for the month, and I always try to find a business to highlight. And the one I found was in Bangkok, and it's a circus spa. It's a spa that
Mm,
also teaches contortion
yeah.
and
Yeah.
pole dancing and
Nice.
circus movements. And I thought, okay, well, that's a new one I haven't heard before. You
Fantastic.
know, that people will certainly feel different after they do that. So let's talk about how do we design this way? How do we approach designing for the outcome and not just the experience? And what does it mean to design for transformation?
Um, since we, exactly 20 minutes ago, we discussed that any activity would have some sort of impact on your well-being, regardless, intentional or unintentional. When, as we said, also said that we are the experts, we know what we have in mind as a therapy program treatment should aim at. And also
Mhm.
we understand how our customers think or what their expectations are. We need to basically match those two and say that I would like to have 85% of my customers to refer to me 2 months after the visit in the following way. Fill the sentence, and when you fill the sentence, then you can design the program. So what is it that you want to be remembered to? Is it the physical aspects of it, the social aspects of it, the intellectual aspects of it, the complex nature of, I can't even describe how my experience were because it was so revolutionary. So
Mm.
tell me what you want to have as an outcome. Not like, oh, it was nice, oh, it was relaxing, oh, wonderful, such an achievement. But think about it that, yes, I feel rejuvenation, I still feel this and this. I really feel reconnected to myself or to nature or my friends or my family. Just feel that sentence and believe me, and I know you know, it's not an easy sentence to finish and
Mm.
to complete
Mm.
because everybody thinks in incremental minutes that it should fit into 45 minutes because then I can have the maximum utilization of the therapist and the treatment space, blah, blah, blah. Instead of, okay, I may not sell 20 treatments a day, only 10, but because those provide such and such outcome, I can charge 3 times the price.
Mhm.
So I don't need to worry about treatment room
Mm.
utilization because my measures will be different. But that's a completely different mindset. And then we're plugging now. Part 2 of the white paper series will tell you exactly how to calculate that.
Okay, good.
I'd also come back to your point about the circus spa. I think some people will be looking for novelty, so something they've never done before. They'll be looking for memorability. The question is, does the memorability come from a novelty? This is something I've never seen before or done before. I think,
Mm.
go to Japan and bathe in noodle soup, for example, which seems amazing. In the past, bathing in wine or beer was seen as novel. And I think, you said at the beginning, I think, that people are quite experienced now, and so they would benchmark one experience against another and say, "Well, this is more memorable than that." Sometimes, I guess, we run a little bit out of ideas about how to be constantly innovative, and in the same way, I think people are not always looking for transformation, as Laszlo said. Sometimes we are looking for relaxation and recuperation as well, but you have to know where to go to get that as well. There are very few places, I think, where you can find a sanctuary away from everyday life, where you can truly escape. And I think a spa is one of those. So that's also important that you think about the atmospherics and the service-scapes so that it's actually allowing people to do that. And you know that you're guaranteed comfort and relaxation and sometimes familiarity. It doesn't always have to be novelty. People go back to the same therapist time and again, or the same
Mm.
fitness instructor. So this could also be something that you want to create that loyalty, that people come back and know that they would get a consistent experience as well. So you know that your service quality is fairly consistent too. So there are many elements to this, I think.
especially as you said, the fitness programming, and
Mm,
fitness instructors, yoga instructors, they do have their own following.
yeah.
And they said,
Mm.
how was your session that you just attended? Yes, 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 it was a lovely session. But the vibe of the session is the one that I'm going for, not necessarily the physical aspects of it, but the
Mm.
community, the others, the atmosphere, the rapport with the among the people. It's not just the physical aspects of it, and also understanding of who your existing guests are and what kind of guests you actually want, not like, oh, well, I think this is my guest. This is completely, outdated. Just we did 2 pilot studies in the US and listeners in the US hot springs. And one of them is very kind of standard relaxation,
Mm,
switching off a little, that's no surprise there. Whereas the other one, it's primarily celebration. This is
Mm.
where people went to celebrate
mm,
wedding anniversaries, birthdays, anything memorable in their lives. So it was so completely different. Hot springs, hot springs. But the the
interesting.
the, the demand was completely different. So as operator now, you can optimize the celebratory aspects of your guest expectations. It's about tiny little tweaks now this operator can add to the experience to increase the total benefit and experience of the guest. Now, knowing that they are, for whatever reason, it was not communicated, branded, or marketed that way, it just turned out to be, they look at it, the place to celebrate. And then it's nothing, you don't add 23 other pools because it's not the point. Whereas, an architect would say that, yes, I have a little space here. Why don't we dig another pool here? It's like, hang on, this is not something our guests would appreciate. So that's
Yeah, we
the,
do we do have that habit of like, "Oh, more. This was good. Let's do more. Let's make it bigger. Let's," and we do need to resist that for sure.
yeah. But that's, that understanding of how well-being is defined. There is the pillars, and that's how they work, and that's how people relate to those, unintentionally or intentionally. And I, as an operator, developer, designer, owner, brand, I intend to achieve this and this, and I'm triggering you by
Mm.
looking at the physical aspects of it, or the social aspects of it, or the psychological effects of it, the intellectual aspects of it, by the learning, or by recognizing, or by
Mm,
growing, not developing necessarily. So this is not a space design task,
Mm.
because not the space that
mm,
makes the difference, and not the more and the bigger and the more expensive
mm.
beds, or let's say linens,
Right.
or whatever,
Right.
because the perceived value that translates well with well-being, that I value this and this, and the perceived value matches my expectations, so I am going away with the intended outcome.
I would just add a small point about architecture and design, because I think there is a lot of focus on that, and sometimes it's very important. And I think I've just done a small study of wine spas, which I found really fascinating, and those that had combined architecture with wine-based experiences. And what was really interesting, I was looking at doing an analysis of the customers' comments, and a lot of them are blown away by the amazing architecture and the design, and they really like it if it's eco-friendly design, for example, these days, sort of biophilic and so forth. But what really struck me was what let down a lot of the facilities, even though they were technically 5-star, were really basic service and satisfaction issues. So
Mm.
you can't compensate for those small details with amazing design and architecture. And that really struck me. So people were talking about if the staff weren't friendly, or if the food was cold, or if, the air temperature wasn't right. So we also shouldn't forget about these fine details. And unfortunately, some architects, they don't think about issues that engineers might address, which would relate to temperature or environmentally friendly environments or energy use and these issues. But customers are concerned about those issues, also the environmental issues from certain cultures. So we do have to consider those issues, I think.
And may I
That's
add one more aspect, Lisa, and that's the conversion that takes place with healthcare and spa and wellness. And there's all that many different medical interventions are being offered at wellness clubs and
Mhm.
wellness centers. And many of those, now you can start the discussion that are they really effective or are they medical grade, whatever. I'm not going to into that part, but that becomes a serious healthcare related service design issue, not just in
Mm.
terms of safety, but also in terms of, that's why I use this IV drip thing, there's nothing fun or relaxing about it.
Mm.
So many facial treatments are gruesome, painful, and you look awful after them for a while. But you had bought that hope that 2 weeks after the treatment you would look absolutely stunning. But in between you feel and look awful potentially. And that's also part of this well-being experience design thinking, that what do I do about you, why you don't even want to have the mirror in the house, let alone looking into it, because of the residual impacts of the treatment, which are all designed, this is how it should be, but doesn't make you feel better or doesn't make you look better. So it's not just the beautiful part of it that those service providers would need to think about this WX approach, but anyone who is literally dealing with live customers, face-to-face customers,
Mhm.
in medical wellness, in longevity, in med spas, wherever we're talking about, because there's all definitely different aspects of it that can ruin the overall experience. And it's not just the NPS that counts, but the NWS, which is the Net Wellbeing Score, not the Net Promoter Score, but the Wellbeing Score, which your guest is going to tell you that, yes, I feel X% better, I look
Mm.
X% better than I had been when I arrived. And that's what's going to make the difference.
Well said. And we're gonna come back to that NPS score comment, but I'm thinking about how your paper lays out the principles of WX, multisensory engagement,
Yeah.
rituals, meaning, personalization. And I wonder if you can speak about how it's important to have that emotional engagement to keep the guests coming back. And it is, to Mel's point, much more important than the layout of the facility. It's about the emotions they had when they were there.
As we know, we have. I have read a book which suggests that we have 22 different senses. No, no,
22.
apparently, yes.
Apart from the 5 that everyone knows, yeah.
Yeah, and other 17 you need to look into as well. No, but really, we need to, consciously think about every aspect of whatever we're going to offer and whatever our guests are going to get and engage with. We need to think of every potential aspect of it, not just the 5 sensory, let's say, aspects of it, but anything beyond the social, the cultural, let's say even financial aspects of it that may and may not be important at a given moment of time, or may not be important to the given person that we have is going to come through the door. And this is not just a treatment design. It's not just as going back to the top. It's not SOP level. It's a holistic SOP, if you will, because it combines the technicality and also combines the surrounding, but the surrounding in a holistic way. The therapist, the person, the doctor, the trainer, the guru, whoever that is, also all of them take part in this delivery aspect. And this is how we need to look into it, not just once. In extreme cases, it could be just one single sense that you want to trigger. Just one. There's nothing wrong
One
with
of the
one.
22.
Yes, there's nothing wrong with one as long as you had designed everything to do that, not just by accident. Oh, I didn't think about the rest. They just have
Mhm.
to really consciously look into every single aspect of it.
And I think what's challenging is, unless you've got a very specific segment coming to your spa, to be able to sort of create facilities that appeal to multiple senses of multiple people, because when I sometimes have an exercise with my student, it's like, what is a smell and that everybody would find tolerable, acceptable, pleasant, and so forth. And it very much depends on what you want to create. Or even in your design, you want it to be sort of Zen simplicity, or you want it to be quite ornate. So if you come from the Middle East or India, you might be expecting sort of colours and gold and strong smells and incense, whereas to somebody else that could be very overwhelming. So this also goes back to the idea of the different cultures and what might be expected. Or maybe you're trying to create a ritual that has a tradition in Thailand that's quite close to Thai culture, for example, or in India, you want to reflect the local culture. And maybe that's what your guest is looking for, actually. They're looking for something a little bit local, a little bit cultural, not just generic and global. So this also goes back to knowing your customer and what they might be looking for. So are you going to offer something that is acceptable to sort of most people? The same with the music, for example, that, is it lounge music? Is it chill out music? Or is it local music? Very difficult to decide. But if you go for personalization, you might give them a choice, for example, for the smell of the oil that you use in the massage or the music that you use while they're having their treatment. But in the communal spaces, you have to make some decisions that are acceptable to everybody. And that's a little bit more challenging, I would say.
And of course, now you will say that since Annalisa is doing a lot of trainings, that is no budget in any spa to do the hyper personalization, because then it's going to be per guest so expensive. And you're absolutely right. So you need to find the common grounds. And this is when, let's say, digital technology can help, because you can change. We both have lovely backgrounds, and I can change the wall. I can change it from sea to mountain, from mountain to opulent looking interior, let's say, image. Of course, it's not the real deal, but close enough, probably, to certain guests. So digital solutions can overcome the cost component, the cost a problem, or even more like limitation. I'll give you an example. I'm not mentioning brands here. I was discussing with a manufacturer that, you're doing all these lovely equipment, beds, and all of those things. Then did you ever think about creating a whole pod, with the digital projection and potential odor, vaporization and lighting and all of that, and working together with therapists, come up with pod optimized treatment journeys or packages that have the lights and the sound and the heat and the odor and the bed and everything combined all together in one pod. So you sell the pod, not a bed. And that, it gives a completely different business proposition. It's a blue ocean strategy. I'm not fixing the bed lifting equipment, so it's quieter. Right. I redefine the business. I'm selling pods in which I need to just put in the therapist, and everything is given. The space and the sink and the oil burner and everything is provided. They didn't buy it.
Oh,
that's what happened. Or can we expect to see this soon?
No, seriously. And the response, I was curious, and the response was that that's going beyond our existing portfolio and experience, and we wouldn't like to branch out. That's a different strategy. It's a very different strategy, but I really would like to see that happen, because then, imagine it from the investor's perspective, you buy the pod. You already bought what the guest will want to buy. You don't need to buy the screens from this provider, the bed from that provider, the linen from this provider, and put it all together, which may or may not work together, to be honest, because you have all sort of discrepancy issues. Buy the pod, of course, comes with certain limitations, but at the same time, the training will be easier for staff, and instantly you're selling journeys, you're selling packages, you're selling programming instead of selling treatments. But it's a very different way of looking at how even a boutique hotel that cannot have a massive spa unit created can buy a pod.
For sure. I've been in a few of those pods, and they address certain aspects. You can deal with scent. You could have screens and music and maybe some vibration, but they never have a therapist in them.
Next level, Lisa. We need to talk about that.
But it would be nice
Okay.
to theme spaces as well, so that customer had a choice of, what they fancy. So that could be, a beach type of environment with the smells of the sea and the sounds of the waves. I
Mhm.
mean, we do that in the accommodations sector, that we have themed rooms, and people love this concept that they choose whatever theme and people book ahead, because they really want to go to that particular environment. So I could really see a potential for that.
Yeah, but it's just applying a design thinking
Mm.
to the well-being aspect of our life, and also as a business. It's basically application and an approach. That's what we are advocating and echoing.
Well, I know that your paper, and your process of WX design outline different tools to map guest journeys, so I would encourage listeners to check that out,
Mm.
to get some ideas. Let's talk about that general word of well-being.
Mm.
Do you think that word is being used, overused? Is well-being experience just another buzzword? I mean, how should we treat
Uh,
this going forward?
I mean, I love working with definitions. So well-being is one of my favorites. But I think it fits very well into the idea of holism or holistic thinking,
Mhm.
because it has multiple domains, well-being, and it's much broader than just the individual, because it also involves the environment and it involves society and so forth. And then we always thought of wellness as the path that we take towards well-being. But for me, well-being connects more to transformation and longer term thinking. So if we use well-being, then it absolutely fits with what we started discussing, is whether or not we just have a short wellness experience which involves some pampering and relaxation, or whether we take it to the next level, which is a more regular experience that's integrated into our lifestyle and has long-term benefits. So I think well-being is longer term and more holistic than wellness. I don't know what you
Mm.
think about that.
And also, we shouldn't forget that this discussion intends to entertain, industry. This is not the
Mhm.
discussion that you would publicize on TikTok or
Right.
any other platform, because that's a very, in a way, academic, at the same time, very professional discussion to modify or to influence thinking, design thinking. The outcomes, obviously, the guest will respond, but I want to achieve that response, and to achieve that, I have to apply this thinking. So, well-being is as Melanie mentioned, it's a long-term thing. Probably we never get there. You need to work on it. That's a work in
Mm.
progress. Sadly, the wellness as a term, it became such a commodified a concept that you go to a store and then you buy hair dryers, toasters,
Pet food.
wellness, and then you have
Mhm.
a hot air fryer. There's a different shelf for wellness. So that
Mhm.
sadly is gone, and now probably longevity is going to achieve the very same thing. But well-being is a very grounded, academic, well-researched, and respected concept as well as phenomenon. So that can give us a long-lasting foundation. However you want to call it, doesn't matter at the moment, but the
Mhm.
foundations will
Mm.
remain. And this training the industry, training the architects, training the therapists, training the developers, that guys, think about all these terms and come up with your own application. That's internal. That's an industry
Mm.
development, and less so aiming at customers, because it probably is a little bit complicated.
Well, I think we always, if we do research, we have to break down the terminology. We'd never ask a customer, like, do you want to improve your well-being? Because you wouldn't know what they understood by that. So
Mhm.
you would have to go back to sort of the emotional outcomes or the transformational outcomes, but you wouldn't call it transformation. You'd say, what kind of changes would you like to see in your body or your mind? Or, you'd have to get to that feeling through different terminology, because customers also may not understand that either, or they'd have a different interpretation. It's like quality of life. What does that mean? It means different
Mhm.
things to different people. So we would have to not simplify the concept, but break it down into component parts, such as emotions, to understand experience fully, I think.
Well, Laszlo brought up that word that we're hearing so much of now, longevity,
Yeah.
and everyone wants that, but my issue with it is that you don't know when you have it. Like, We can do the things now and then come back in 30 years. Did I achieve it? I don't know. Well-being is something that anyone can feel like they have that now, today. You can say, yes, I feel like I have that in my life and I'm
Yeah.
accomplishing it. So I think it's easier to attain in a way.
I think so too. I mean, I think the problem as well with longevity is living a long time is good, but you want healthy life years. And I
Hmm.
think that, and you want to feel happy, really. So we can talk about subjective well-being, which is happiness. People want to feel happy and they want to feel relatively healthy. They want to feel good about themselves. And maybe if we go a stage further, to flourish, which is when it comes to transformation and vitality and these kinds of issues. But I think you're right about that. We do want to feel good in the here and now. And sometimes we don't really want to put ourselves through too much pain for feeling good later or for living longer, because we don't quite know exactly when that's going to be. So I think you're absolutely right. There has to be some pleasure in the moment for us to be able to really want to purchase these experiences, I would say.
Let me give you and to the listeners a very particular example, if you don't mind.
I don't
I was
mind.
talking to a destination wedding planner. And you might say the destination weddings are all very glorious and everybody is very happy and all very beautiful and everything. Except when you're in it, it could be extremely stressful pre, post, and during and
Mhm.
of the whole event. How's it going to fine? Everybody's happy. Everything is sorted. Decisions made. Changes need to be made, and so on and so on. The brother of the bride, the mother of the bride could be very, very stressed that everything is going beautifully, as well as the bride. So the whole well-being infused destination wedding planning was creating a very different approach before the wedding, how to prepare physically and mentally and emotionally, what happens during and post, to give
Mm.
some time to wind down and calm down and give some private time, have some reconnection, because there's thousands of people around. You don't have the luxury time to even spend any time with family. So you give options to reconnect as family after your fabulous day. And you're not going to sell it as a wellness wedding thing, because it sounds
Mhm.
ridiculous to me. However, I'm sure we find examples like that. But the design process was very, very much influenced with this whole well-being aspects of it, of minimizing stress or recuperating after stress or reconnecting with each other and so on. And it came up with a very different package. So the end of the wedding, the guest as well as the consumers, the parents or even the
The
happy
guests,
couple, they would have a very different experience, because it was designed such way that I know the stress points, I know the problem points, I know the situations which create tiny but really impactful situations, and I try to avoid them or litigate them. But that's not going to make it a wellness wedding. It's just looking at well-being of the people in it and organizing it.
I don't know. I think wellness weddings could be a new category,
yeah.
Laszlo.
I do.
Think this is a good
Yeah.
idea.
Shall we please trademark it, Lisa?
Yeah.
Can we do that now?
Sounds
Let's
nice.
speak a moment on responsible experience design, not just selling wellness, but designing it meaningfully.
Mhm.
Equity for well-being, I guess that means pricing, accessibility, avoiding superficial elements, and what responsibility spas and brands have in shaping people's health, not just their leisure time. Those are two different, very, very different approaches.
Certainly, equity in this sense refers to creating the um, platform from which everybody can get his or her or theirs best at a given moment of time. Not giving everybody the same
Mhm.
experience of programming, but making them able to achieve the best what they can get. Not the best, but the best they can get, which is very, very different. So that becomes the equity approach to it. So I'm enabling guests to take part and get the most what they prefer, not giving everybody what I think is the best, which is,
Mhm.
you might say it's a very semantic discussion, but really, really isn't. And it's especially that many people wouldn't take part in certain programming because they never did it. Culturally, they are objecting it. They think it's not for me, or it's too expensive, and so on, because they don't know what they can get out of it. So that's why, as an operator or as an experience designer, we need to create those situations that I give a little taste of it, so they understand, oh, hang on, that's actually very nice. I never thought about it. Why don't I try more of it? But how do I'm going to achieve that? Is it going to be in the lobby? It's a free service. Is it going to be a free afternoon session so you can pop in and try? Or you do it as an extra after a certain treatment? But this comes, the intricacies of how to make this equity. Not just providing everybody the same, and we know that not everybody can afford everything. There's no such thing, and it won't be. And it comes the other aspects when we say the responsibility to local community, the responsibility to local resources, and so on. So it's a very complex way of looking at it. You might say even complicated, but there's the beauty of it, I should think.
Yeah, and I mean, I think we have to think about people who don't go to spas and why they don't go. So younger people will now say, well, it's too expensive given the cost of living. Men might say, well, it's not for me. It can be a cost issue for many people. But I know, for example, in the UK, people like to go now to communal saunas, for example.
It's very popular.
This is really popular, isn't it? So
carried this to the finish. It's a popular.
Yeah, and I mean,
Is it
everyday
really?
occurrence in Finland. But I mean, I think just many people might, they go. I notice from sort of say reviews that people don't actually have treatments in some of the bigger spas. They will go and enjoy the waters, especially if they've got children, for example. They may not even go to, the wellness section. So maybe you can provide some communal spaces that are more affordable, and then those people who can afford the treatments can go. In order to make the treatments affordable, maybe you have to, have a few of these mini facials or shorter massages. I do like the fact that if you go to a country like Thailand, they give massage on the street. They give very short foot massage or head and neck massage, and it's very affordable. And you charge more money if you go to a place that's indoors, that's got a private room. So you can grade the pricing maybe according to what you're offered. If it's a foot massage in a communal space, obviously you don't pay as much as if you've got a private room. I'm not sure that works for luxury spas, but it might work if you wanted to make some of these treatments more accessible to the public.
No, that's very true. I mean, we can't build it all for luxury, right? The world has millions of people in it that will never step in a luxury property, and they don't have other options.
Yeah,
And the responsibility is the informed and conscious decisions that you know what you're doing, and you know the impacts of your doing, and you're aware of that, and then you have an intention to minimize, optimize, or maximize depending on which aspect we're talking about. So responsibility is being informed and being conscious that my decision now has the impacts now as well as in the next 5 years in the following way. That's just being responsible. And being responsible for my staff, responsible for the local community or the nature, the species, or whatever places we are talking about. Just taking that responsibility as an operator, as a brand, or as a property. That yes, I do have a role in all this. I'm not, avoiding responsibility.
So I want to circle back to something you said earlier. You touched on NPS, Net Promoter Scores. I mean, in this new world of wellness experience, how should we measure the outcomes as business owners and operators? What are the metrics we're going to be looking at?
It's an invitation for another podcast about part 2. Thank you, Lisa. Appreciate it. No, seriously. But exactly, that's when could be detailed. That's why I dropped this NWX, Net Wellbeing Score, NWS, sorry, because not just I am recommending it, because recommendation can be based on design, can be based on architecture, can be based on price, can be based on all sort of things which may or may not have an impact on the well-being aspect of the visit or on the consumption. So the Net Wellbeing Score would suggest that I report back improvement myself, personally, physically, emotionally, socially, psychologically, pre-post. So I do have the metrics as an operator, how to ask those questions. If you're a med spa, you have a different set of metrics. If you are more on the holistic side, you have a different set of metrics. If you are on a more ascended wellness side, you have a different set of metrics. But that really makes everybody understood that you know what you're talking about, that you don't just go through and say, oh, well, there's the GOP is this, therefore I am doing brilliantly. Yes, partially, yes, you are, but you are in the, let's say, in the well-being business, or you're providing well-being related services. You need to go beyond that. So it shows your understanding of the business you are in, not just financially, but also in terms of outcomes. So the Net Wellbeing Score refers to this phenomenon, and you look at it, let's say, obviously it could be very, very subjective in terms of looking into the mirror. Yes, I do feel and look, younger or more relaxed or less wrinkles or whatever it is. At the same time, you can look at, yes, I can, my pain level decreased by, I don't know how many percent, because that's what I report. No one can tell me. I can tell.
Right.
Just because I click on 4 stars on whichever platform as a recommendation has no impact on, it doesn't tell me anything about the core benefit of visiting that place. And this is why you need to have an NWS.
Melanie, do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, I mean, I would say that I think we've become quite reliant, haven't we, on reviews, I think, of spas and looking at these. And a lot of these mention really basic satisfaction factors, but we don't really go very deeply into that. So you don't get the kind of data that you would really need, as Laszlo said. So I think if you wanted to go, really think now we have a mental health crisis in society, especially among younger generation, we'd need to know like why our spas are mentally or psychologically or emotionally beneficial. And not to say that we can have a very deep analysis in a questionnaire, but we might need to ask quite clever questions to work out really whether people feel psychologically better after their treatments, whether they feel better about themselves. Because people do have self-esteem issues, and this is why they often want to have cosmetic surgery, or they worry about their body. And social media makes this a lot worse. So I think we do really need to think about whether or not we can also reach people at a deeper level. And I think basic customer satisfaction questionnaires don't do that. And I think review sites don't really do that either. So I think we would be interested, in developing such questions that capture this really well.
Yeah, those pilots that we did on those hot spring locations, talking about one which was the celebratory location, would you recommend this place? Yes. Were you satisfied with the prices, food, pools, whatever? Yes. But you would never ever find out that the core well-being related aspect of this visit is celebration, which is social, it's psychological, predominantly.
Emotional, definitely.
Yeah, and emotional. So 3 of the 8 well-being domains are very, very strong in there, but you can't get it from an NPS.
Right. So we need to think about how we ask the questions, don't we?
So we need to have a little stop because we have some, the doorbell is the delivery. So Melanie is taking on.
Okay.
Sorry, I didn't even hear it actually, but yeah, thank you. So.
Well, we will address one last question, and Melanie, we'll start with you. If you could redesign the global spa experience from scratch using your WX principles, what would you eliminate immediately, and what would you build first?
That's very interesting. I mean, I think I do feel that a lot of spas went for quite a generic approach, sometimes to the services and treatments that they have, and they didn't pay enough attention maybe to context. And sometimes I think this can be very important. We see now that people are really interested in the environment that spas are in, and I think the landscape, for example, they might be interested in the environmental qualities or the design elements. I also think that it is important to link, if you want novelty and memorability, to culture and rituals in a certain place, and and also to know where your customers are coming from. And I don't know if we did this well enough, whether we designed the spas specifically for the segments that we wanted to attract. I think it's okay if you're working with one country with mainly domestic tourists coming from your own country. But for example, in Europe, it's a very diverse market and people are coming
Mhm.
from lots of different cultural backgrounds. Now they start to come, for example, from China, or they might come from the Middle East. We have very different customer base. So I think designing a very generic experience, for example, now we have halal customers, for example, but
Mhm.
we have to think about Islamic principles in the spas. So I think we need to pay a lot more attention, I think, to context and culture, I would say. Yes, Laszlo, I'm sure we'll have
Excellent.
another view on this. And
Laszlo, my last question for you was, if you could redesign the global spa experience from scratch using WX principles, what would you eliminate immediately and what would you build first?
If I wanted to achieve a fairly standard, nothing wrong, fairly standard relaxation, whatever thing, I can do a fairly easily, not I, we can do a fairly easy set of parameters that could justify and also satisfy up to 80-85% of any guest. So because that's just very generic. It's nothing wrong, it's generic. The more specific you are, the more likely you need to be, taking back and getting very focused, and therefore not accepting certain guests. So the focus means that you don't want certain other people. Not because you don't like them, just because they have very different set of expectations. So this is, probably if you wanted to have nothing else but just first-time visitors, because you want to focus on tourists only, or mostly tourists, then you will have a tasting, more like an introduction
Mhm.
to a certain experience. Then most of your guests would be first-time visitors. There's nothing wrong with that. But should you want to have repeat visitors, then you need to have a different, as we said, an expansion, and to say it for those who come back repeatedly. So yeah, we need to be conscious about how we design and who we actually want to have.
That you would think that went without saying, but it's good to make it clear because it is obvious. We're always focused on the result and the dollars, but less so on the experience. Hopefully, that will change now with your new approach, and I do look forward to part two. Thank you both so much for joining us, Laszlo Puczko and Melanie Smith, co-founders of HTWW Life, and you can find their website at htww.life, and you can read more about the paper. And I'm sure those who listen regularly have heard Laszlo before, but it's great to have Melanie Smith join us today. Thank you both so much for
thank
your
you so
time.
much.
Thank you
Thank you
so
very
much,
much,
Lisa.
Lisa.